everyone, coming to you again with another random video, and today I'm going to be talking about personalities. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to basically lay out the 9 different anagrams of the 9 different personalities or different kinds of people, and talk about each one briefly and give you a sense of what each one is, and maybe this will allow you to further understand maybe who you are, or help you identify with certain problems that you face maybe within your own personal life that pertains to your personal way of thinking or your own personality. And I will make sure to have links that will take you directly to the website that addresses a lot of these personalities more in depth than what I'm going to go into. But for the most part, what I will try to give you is a basic foundation as to what each of these personalities entail. And I will also try to see if I can also recommend a book that I happened to read over last summer, which I thought was really informative and really helpful. I'll make sure to have the Amazon link so you can look at it up on Amazon. And what else? Oh yes, and also on the website that talks about these various different personalities and goes really in depth into them and how the whole anagram system works. It also contains, I believe, quizzes as well, so you can kind of determine where you're at if you've looked at all the personalities and you're still not really sure. These tests can be helpful, and I'll make sure that if it is not in this particular website that I'm recommending, that I'll make sure to put a link that does have the website that will take you to that spot where you can actually take a quiz. But I prefer more of checklists, and the book actually has a checklist for each personality. So you just kind of mark things, and whatever you have the most marks for, that's the most personality or the type of personality you lean towards too. So without further ado, let us begin talking about the personalities, and I'm going to be starting with number 1. They always go in order from 1 to 9. So the 1 to 9, according to the website that I looked into, they have different names for each type, but it all pertains basically to the same personality of each one. They just may have a different title for it. But the title for the website that I researched on was the Reformer. And the Reformer is basically someone who is conscientious and ethical with a strong sense of right and wrong. So the one basically sees things in a very sort of black and white perspective, and they try to do whatever is right because they are driven towards being sort of a perfectionist. They are teachers, crusaders, and advocates for change, always striving to improve things, but afraid of making a mistake. And see, that's the thing too, is that they're so driven to do the right thing. They're so driven by the right that they can't see the possibilities or understand that it is within human nature to make mistakes, and sometimes it's okay to do wrong. It's not like you have to go about your life doing everything you think is right. Because sometimes things aren't always so black and white, and this is what the one particularly struggles with, because the one does not see the shades of gray within things. They are well organized, orderly, fastidious, and they try to maintain high standards, but can slip into being critical and perfectionistic. And this is where that basically comes to the point that I was saying, is it's just that they focus too much on separating the right and the wrong, and then believing that what they're doing is the right thing. Now, ones can have all different kinds of moralities. They could be tied to a religious morality, a traditional morality, and they see that through their perspective, but they don't see things through other people's lenses at times, because they think what they do is right. They think that what they do is of perfection, and then they have, and this is what causes them to have problems with resentment and impatience. So they can't maybe tolerate other people's opinions of what is right or wrong, because it doesn't follow their orderly structure, because they'll say, no, what you're doing isn't right. This is how you should do it, because I know what's right and what's wrong, because I'm a perfectionist. I know what to do, because I know what helps me, and I know what is good for me, and therefore it should probably be good for everybody else. But that's when, again, the one doesn't really realize that there's different kinds of morality, and not everybody follows exactly what a particular one follows. And so this causes the one to suffer a basic fear of being corrupt / evil or defective. So from a one standpoint, it causes the fear of doing wrong is the main scare that they have, because it doesn't go within their order of thinking. If they don't do something right, they feel that that order is not perfect and it's not right. And they don't realize that the world is maybe a little bit more complicated than just this orderly system that they create. And this leads them to have a desire to be good and to have integrity and to be balanced. They desire to maintain their good qualities and try to use whatever perfectionistic ideals that they have and put them up on a pedestal and push towards that direction, instead of actually looking at things through maybe another perspective. They already have this kind of world that they view, and they set that up as to be the right way of doing things. And basically this leads to their key motivations to want to be right, to strive higher and to improve everything, to be consistent with their ideals, to justify themselves, to be beyond criticism, as to not be condemned by anyone. So basically what they fear is being looked down upon as something that is wrong, something that is not just, something that is condemned. And this fear can be by society, can be by their society, it can be by their God, whoever they believe in, and it's very a very sort of black and white system for the most part. But some people who are ones may be more, their morality is not so narrow, and maybe some ones are more narrow than others. It depends, because everybody is born within a certain kind of social setting, and then they'll sort of respond with that social setting, and then a one forming their personality will claim that their moral standings is right, and that what they're doing is right, and try to make everything perfect. That something has no flaws, that there's nothing wrong with it. They don't want anything to be wrong by them or towards anybody else. And they want to be free of criticism because they want to feel right. They want to feel like that what they're doing is right, and that that is the way, and that there's no other way, and that, you know, if you say something that's against what I believe in, it's wrong. And that's just basically what their personality is in a nutshell. I've had friends who are like this. My mom is like this, except I think my mom is in more of a broad reformer realm. Like, she's more of a perfectionist in things that she does, not necessarily in what she believes in. She just has a strong sense of wanting to do right and wanting to make sure that everything is perfect. But the thing is that we live in a very imperfect world, and the ones try to use their perfection in order to make the world a better place. And this is obviously very, very good and very can be very empowering for other people. So if this kind of resembles who you are, then you would probably be in this category. You would be a 1. You would be the reformer, or what some people say would be the idealist, and so forth. So that's basically number 1 in a nutshell. Now the second personality, number 2, these are considered to be the helpers. The helpers are concerned with other people's needs. They are empathetic, sincere, and warm-hearted. They are friendly, generous, and self-sacrificing, but can also be driven to be close to others, but can slip into doing things for others in order to be needed. They typically have problems with possessiveness and with acknowledging their own needs. So basically, the ones are considered to be the helpers because they want to put everybody else's needs before their own. They'll do things for you, they'll provide for you, they'll care for you, they'll fulfill all your needs so they can have those needs returned to them. It's sort of like, you know, you do this for me so I can be accepted by you. It's that kind of mentality to want to be needed and cared for. It's that whole idea that if I do something for you, then I'll be more accepted by, and I'll be more looked after and cared for and loved. Now what happens to the number 2s is that they often develop this basic fear of being unwanted or unworthy. So they are afraid of not being accepted, not being needed, being sort of unworthy or unwanted. The whole idea of not being able to actually give someone a specific need. So this often results in their basic desire to feel loved. The 2s want to feel like that they can have some form of love from someone. They want to have that reciprocated onto them because they are the kinds of people who do all these things for other people so that they can get that love and satisfaction in return. And then this ends up resulting in their motivations to be to express their feelings to others, to be needed and appreciated, to get others to respond to them, to videotape their claims about themselves. So what they try to do is they try to create a world where they look to others and try to get people to respond to them by reaching out to others, by doing things. And often these kinds of things really can help society. People who help each other, who are supportive of one another, someone who goes out of their way to do something for somebody else really technically makes the world a better place. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the number 2 in a nutshell. So if you happen to be one of those kinds of people, then you would probably be a number 2. Now, the number 3 is called the achiever. And the 3s are self-assured, attractive, and charming. Ambitious, competent, and energetic, they can also be status conscious and highly driven of advancement. They are diplomatic and poised, but also can be overly concerned with their image and what others think of them. They typically have problems with workaholism and competitiveness. Now, this particular group of people, as from what I've read, they feel that the most important thing for them to do is to be achieved and be recognized. And this often results in, again, competitiveness, overworking yourself, overdoing yourself, putting yourself out there so that people notice you, so that people recognize you, doing things so that you can get ahead, so that you can be the person that is the dominant figure, whether it's for your career, whether it's for your relationships. You want to be, the achiever in particular wants to be, if you are an achiever, you want to be the one that stands out. You want to be the one that achieves. You want to make sure that you have some sense of worth, some sense of being, and you tend to look at others and try to kind of look at people in a sense as competition and try to exceed others because you want to be recognized. You don't want to fade in the crowd. You like to stand out. You want to be the achiever. You want to make a goal. You want to do something that no one else has done. And in order to do this, these are the traits that they have. They're ambitious. They will not stop to achieve. And this ends up resulting in the basic fear of being worthless. Again, not having your say, not having yourself being the center of attention, not having yourself be recognized is something of great severity. And by great severity, I mean great severe fear. And it's a severe kind of state that the achiever does not want to be in. And this ends up resulting in their basic desire to feel valuable and worthwhile. They want to stand out. They want to impress people. They want to come into a room and shine. And again, achievers don't have to necessarily be smart people. I don't think that that's what it's intended to be. It's intended to be people who stand out in some particular way, whether that's through being academically smart, whether that's through being talented like a singer or a dancer or whatever. The achiever wants to stand out from everybody else. They want to be recognized. They want to be put on a pedestal that makes them look better. because they feel like if they don't have that, then that they're worthless and that they don't stand out and that they're like everybody else. That's basically their motivations. That's their fear. And they also want to be affirmed, to distinguish themselves from others, to have attention, to be admired, and to impress others. They want to make sure that you remember them. The achiever wants to make sure that you know who I am. That's the basic goal of the achiever. To make sure that you understand that the achiever has an impact. And this impact can actually be good. Some people who have been ambitious and who have put themselves on a high pedestal have done great amounts of work, whether it be through talent or whether it be through academic achievements, anything else. Achievers, even though they're entirely self-centered people, still can do good things. So overall, that's basically what the achiever is. Someone who wants to stand out from the crowd, wants to be recognized. Now, the individualist, which is the number 4s, is going to be really hard to describe. But they're basically called the individualists, and they are self-aware, sensitive, and reserved. They are emotionally honest, creative, and personal, but can also be moody and self-conscious, withholding themselves from others due to feeling vulnerable and defective. They can also feel disdainful and exempt from ordinary ways of living. They typically have problems with melancholy, self-indulgence, and self-pity. So from what I can tell is that the individualist has a problem with other people. The individualist tries to avoid conformity. The individualist wants to find themselves in their significance, and sometimes maybe associating themselves with others, they feel like that they are not being an individual, they're not being themselves. So they go against what the norm is, of what a lot of people do, and try to find that sort of inner self that makes them unique and different from everybody else. And this is what drives their fear. Their fear is that they have no identity or personal significance. Again, the whole idea of being that one in the crowd. I would say that the individualist and the achiever are fairly similar, but the individualist is more focused on themselves rather than what other people think of them. And the achiever is definitely concerned about what others think of them and tries to do whatever they can so that others will think highly of them. Individuals don't particularly care what other people think of them. They want to do something that stands out, and they don't care what anybody else thinks or says. They want to go with whatever individual aspects that they have, whatever individual strangeness or uniqueness that they have, and make that stand out because they don't want to be put in the category of normalcy. They want to make sure that they can stand on their own feet and say, I am an individual. I don't need to do anything for anybody else. I am the individual. I don't need to worry about anybody else. I'm the individual. And often this results in huge amounts of creativity because, again, they think of things that nobody else would think of. They do things that nobody else would really think of doing because they're just so individualistic. They like to do things because they want to stand out. But they don't want to stand out in order to necessarily please anybody. They just do it for themselves. And they want to, and this leads to their motivations to being, again, they want to express themselves and their individuality, to create and surround themselves with beauty, to maintain certain moods and feelings, to withdraw, to protect their self-image, to take care of emotional needs before attending to anything else, to attract a rescuer. Basically, they feel like that they, in order to stand out, they need to kind of be removed. So, you might see that very artistic person in the corner doing or creating something that you haven't seen before, that you haven't even thought of. And they do that within themselves, within the confines of themselves. They don't look to anybody else for help or inspiration. They look for themselves. Individualists are clearly self-motivated. Whereas the achievers are self-centered, individualists are self-motivated. They're motivated by themselves. They don't care if they're the center of attention or not. What they care about is their own individuality, their own individual concerns. So they often break away from the extreme or the norm of society, and they try to make something of their own. They feel like that that's the only way that they can be themselves. So that's basically, I guess, how I could explain the individualist. I think that was a little bit more of a complex personality to get down. Now, number 5s are the investigators. And this one I think is going to be a little bit more challenging too. 5s are alert, insightful, and curious. They are able to concentrate and focus on developing complex ideas and skills. Independent, innovative, and inventive, they can also become preoccupied with their thoughts and imaginary constructs. They become detached yet high-strung and intense. Very typically have they typically have problems with eccentricity, nihilism, and isolation. So I would guess from what I can gather from the 5 is that they like to make things. They like to use their abilities to make something, and this causes them to have this basic fear of being useless or incapable. The 5, I believe, wants to make sure that they can do something, that they are able to finish that homework assignment, that they're able to get an A on that test, that they are able to do these things, and they're afraid if they're not able to do that, that they're incapable or they're useless. So this obviously creates them to have the basic desire to be capable and competent, that they can use their skills and their capabilities, kind of like, sort of in a way, as, and I'm thinking of an architect, like someone who can construct something, someone who can see an idea through, who's capable of using their ideas to innovate, to fix, and to focus, and to make sure that they can accomplish what they need to accomplish. So if you ask a 5 to do something, they'll make sure that they can do it, because they want to do it. Because if they can't do it, they'll feel worthless, and this oftentimes is what results in the 5 in feeling that their being is not perfect. or worthy. Sometimes it kind of, I want to say that the investigator is kind of a mix of an individualist and an achiever. Like that they want to achieve things, but it's not for, I don't think it's for themselves to be an individual, and it's not because they want to please other people. It's just that they just want to be able to do it. They want to be able to look at something and just do it, no matter what anybody else says or what their individual intents and purposes are. Their focus is just the task itself. To be able to sit down and do something in a task and accomplish it. So their motivations become that they want to possess knowledge, to understand the environment, to have everything figured out as a ways of defending the self from threats from the environment. So their purpose is to try to make sure that they can figure out everything, that they can have an answer, that they can sort of use that as a form of defense, like it says, to make sure that they are capable of fixing and doing things, that they are capable of finding out stuff and providing you with an answer, providing you with an answer that is both truthful and honest. That's what the investigator's concerned about. Finding something and figuring it out so that they know that they are capable and that they are useful. And if they can't achieve that, then they'll feel like that they aren't. So I think that's really all how I can explain the investigator in a nutshell. Now moving on to number 6. The 6s are called, according to this website, the loyalists. The 6s are committed, security-oriented type. 6s are reliable, hardworking, responsible, and trustworthy. Excellent troubleshooters. They foresee problems and foster cooperation, but can also become defensive, evasive, and anxious, running on stress while complaining about it. They can be cautious and indecisive, but also reactive, defiant, and rebellious. They typically have problems with self-doubt and suspicion. So basically 6s want to make sure that they can be in a state of comfort and security. Oftentimes 6s can have a lot of stress because they are afraid of something maybe going wrong. And they often have problems with having confidence within themselves to accomplish something. And they try to and think that they can figure out problems before they even happen. And these problems that they fear that could happen can lead them into a form of stress. And they feel that could cause them to be without a means of support and guidance. So I would describe my dad as like this. I'm afraid. I feel like my dad is sort of in a state of a 6. He is a 6. I think he is, because he gets afraid about things, even if they haven't even happened yet. He has a feeling like that something is going to happen, but it maybe never ends up happening. But he constructs this in like a logical way, but he doesn't know for sure if that's going to happen. He just fears that might happen, and if something will happen, then he can't have a support system. And he can't have guidance. So for the most part, And oftentimes they complain with their stress. And my dad, he does this. He does complain about his stress, about what he's dealing with. And this is just how his brain functions. And basically, the basic desire of a 6 is to have security and support. They want to make sure that nothing bad is going to happen, that they are going to have something there that's going to make things stable. I thought it was interesting how they didn't bring up a trait as being paranoid. I think that's what I would describe as 6 a little bit as well, is that they're a little bit paranoid. They are afraid of things that could happen. They're afraid of the future. They can be afraid of what could happen, and what would that and what it would mean for them and for people that surround them. And this causes them to have their key motivations to be security, to feel supported by others, to have certitude and reassurance, to test the attitudes of others, to word them, to fight against anxiety and insecurity. So basically is their whole thing, or the whole thing that a 6 is going throughout their life, is to deal with this sort of state of uncertainty and dealing with things that are unknown and that are beyond. But sometimes 6s focus more on certain things than other 6s may do. And for the most part, I think it just has to do with their fear of not having a safety net, not having a support system, not having anything there to help them or to guide them. They feel like they need sort of this kind of guidance, and they need some kind of support system. And when they lose that support system, everything comes crashing down. Even though they're not sure that something bad will happen. It's like this rock could fall and break this support system I have, this trampoline, let's just say. But there are chances that the rock may just stand there. Maybe the rock is on a cliff, and it stands there, and it stands there, and it's not going to fall. It will never fall. But the 6 is still afraid that rock is going to fall. And tries to do everything in its power to prevent this rock from ever trying to fall on and break their support system. So that's basically the loyalist in general. And I don't really know why they call the 6 the loyalist. I guess loyal to security, loyal to their support system, and try to use their support system as a means of assurance. I don't really know. I guess that's where they say committed or like loyal, security-oriented people who are focused on making sure that they have something there, that they're not alone. So that's basically and that's just not just with people. I mean, it may be through, maybe having a job or having food or resources, things like that. Those could be also drivers. And then the number 7 is the enthusiasts. They are extroverted, optimistic, versatile, and spontaneous, playful, high-spirited, and practical. They can also misapply their many talents, becoming overextended, scattered, and undisciplined. They constantly seek new and exciting experiences, but can become distracted and exhausted by staying on the go. They typically have problems with impatience and impulsiveness. So, basically the enthusiast is someone who could probably be driven to means of extremes. You could say someone who does extreme sports. That could be an enthusiast because they are doing things that a lot of people wouldn't do. They're going to these very desolate climates to do sports that could be dangerous and could be life-threatening, but they don't care because it's new. It's a new experience that no one has done before. The enthusiast wants to have fun. The enthusiast wants adventure. The enthusiast wants to feel things that no one else has felt before. They want to go and find things. They're very self-motivated because they want to feel things. They want to feel things that nobody else has experienced. They want to feel like life is this means of escaping normalcy and trying to find things that are new and exciting and give you thrill. This causes their basic fear to be of being deprived and in pain. So, they don't want to feel like that they're limited. They want to feel like that they can go to whatever means that they can. And again, they want to seek pleasure. But sometimes that pleasure can result from pain, can result into pain, even though they may not know that yet. So that's kind of a thing that they're kind of maybe even afraid of themselves a bit. It almost seems like not being able to have fun and not being able to have pleasure. That's their main scare, is that they won't have it. They won't have pleasure, and they'll be deprived from having pleasure. And then their basic desires to be satisfied and content to have their needs fulfilled. So if they want to go and do something crazy, they're going to go out and do something crazy. Nothing's going to stop them because they want to feel like that they have a certain kind of satisfaction, like that they did it, that they fulfilled out what they accomplished to do, that nobody else tried to do, something that will bring them some kind of emotional response that they feel would be something that nobody else would experience, and something unique and interesting that would please them. So their key motivations, as a result, want to be to maintain their freedom and happiness, to avoid missing out on worthwhile experiences, and to keep themselves excited and occupied, to avoid any discharge pain. So they are kind of the pleasure seekers. They want to have fun. Their basic goal is to have fun, do things, go out into the world, experience the world, do all these amazing, crazy things, have their freedom, not feel restricted by whatever means is necessary, to feel like that they can experience things that nobody else was willing to do because of whatever restrictions there were, like society, yada yada yada, family, friends, morality, so on and so forth. They want to seek some form of pleasure, and they care, and they're basically want to do things for themselves, sort of like an individualist, but they want to do things that will be responsive to them in a pleasurable way. Things that are sort of maybe out of the norm, but things that are exciting, things that are fun. The enthusiast wants to have fun for the most part. I think an enthusiast could possibly be the Toad from Ichabod and Mr. Toad, if you've ever watched the Disney short. The Toad in the Disney short is very, how do we say? He's very self-motivated, and he wants to have fun. He wants to do things exciting. He likes holding on to some kind of mania and some kind of excitement and pleasure. He wants to experience that. So that's basically the enthusiast in a nutshell, the number 7. The number 8, or this, is the challenger. The challengers, or the 8s, are self-confident, strong, and assertive, protective, resourceful, straight-talking, and decisive, but can also be egocentric and domineering. 8s feel that they must control their environment, especially people, sometimes becoming confrontational and intimidating. 8s typically have problems with their tempers and with allowing themselves to be vulnerable. So the 8s are sort of driven, a big word in here is control. They want to have control. They want to have some sort of form of order or stability. And the reason that they want to have this is because they are afraid that other people will try to control them. So they basically put their authority on other people. And being their basic fear of being harmed or controlled by others, they end up doing what other people may try to do to them. And this results in their basic desire to protect themselves, to be in control of their own life and destiny. So that in order to have control, they feel like that they need to put control onto other people so that they can have some form of control of themselves. And this leads their basic desires or motivations want to be self-reliant, to prove their strength and resist weakness, to be important in their world, to dominate the environment, and to stay in control of their situation. So basically, they want to have control so that nobody controls them. This could be like somebody who, I guess, is like a boss who kind of doesn't really have a good amount of, really, I guess you could say, trust of people. I don't think the 8s are really that trustworthy of people. They're afraid that people will try to control them and that people are out there for their own self-gain, so they make sure that they can have the control and they can have the power. But in the end, their motivation isn't to have control, but it's to protect themselves, to be in control of their own life and destiny. So they feel like when someone's trying to control them, they're invading on them. And the only way that they can make sure that they have control of their lives is making sure that everybody else stays in line and doesn't go against what they have to say. I think that's the best way I can describe that. Again, this is kind of a little bit of a harder personality to explain. Now the last one is the number 9s, the 3s, or this. And the 9 is me. I'm a 9. I'm in this category. And basically, I'm just going to describe it to you, and I could probably describe this more easily because, again, it identifies with myself. So basically, the 9s are the peacemakers. The 9s are accepting, trusting, and stable. They are usually creative, optimistic, and supportive, but can also be too willing to go along with others to keep the peace. They want everything to go smoothly and be without conflict, but they can also tend to be complacent, simplifying problems and minimizing anything upsetting. They typically have problems with inertia and stubbornness. So, what 9s try to do, what me as a 9 try to do, is we try to keep peace. We try to make sure that everybody can get along. We want to be kind of incorporated with everybody. We like the idea of us belonging. We like to, and we feel like the only way to do that is by means of having peace, means of having this as a structure, trying to avoid problems, avoid conflicts. And sometimes what ends up happening, and it was happened numerous times in my life, is that at times I give in into what other people want me to do, even though I don't really feel comfortable doing it, in order to keep this kind of peace, to keep this kind of ways of avoiding tension and avoiding problems, and avoiding conflict. I feel like if I don't say no, that I am not looking for, or that I'm not pleasing that one person, and this will end up causing conflict between me and that person, and I don't want that. I want that person to be happy. So I give that up as a means of establishing peace and belonging, so I can be with that person, and so I can be loved by that person. So our basic fear is of loss and separation. We don't want to have this wall. We don't want to be shut down by people or rejected. When that happens to us, it hurts us because we want to belong. We want to feel loved. We want to feel accepted. And instead of, we're kind of similar and I think the helpers in a way, is that we do want love. I think that's a really key motivation for a 9. But the 9 does it in a means of by avoiding conflict. The helper does this by helping other people, by doing things for other people. What we try to do is we try to break these sort of conflicts and differences between people. And what we try to do is we try to make ourselves more in harmony with ourselves and with everybody else. So that's why we avoid conflict. Our basic desire is to have inner stability, peace of mind. So when we have this kind of state of being, then we feel happy. We feel like that there's no problems, that everybody is getting along, everything's fine, and then we feel better about ourselves, and we feel like we're more incorporated with everybody else, and we feel like we can assimilate and belong with everybody else, and get along with everybody else. And then this causes our key motivations to be to want to create harmony in their environment, to avoid conflicts and tension, to preserve things as they are, to resist whatever would upset or disturb them. Oftentimes, I have a challenge of speaking my mind. I think that has to do with the fact that, for the most part, I am afraid of saying something that would go against what someone else believes. And this fear of not having peace, having this argument, makes it difficult for a 9, because a 9 wants to and keeps all of those feelings that they may have, or those ideas that they have in the inside, and don't express them because they're afraid that someone is going to disagree with them, and they'll be separated. You'll be pushed aside. You will be separated. You don't belong. You're not a part of anything. You're just alone. I think it's a fear of being alone, of not being loved, of not being accepted. I think our fear is more inner than just a loss of separation. We're afraid that we're not going to be loved and we're not going to be accepted if we keep our opinions, our things, ourselves under wraps, and we don't say anything that could maybe hurt or offend somebody, because we want to make sure that that person is happy and that they're not, that our feelings and our opinions are kept to a minimum. so we don't get involved in confrontation. We like to obliterate confrontation. We don't like to backtalk people. We don't like to get into arguments. We don't like to do these things. Why? Because we want to feel like we're accepted and we belong. And that if somebody disagrees with us, they're not going to accept us. And they'll look down upon us and say, you know what, you don't agree with me, so you're not part of me and you're not part of this system. So what we try to do is we try to have these kind of universal things that maybe a lot of people could get themselves behind. We assimilate well with others. We are often, and the thing is the more we assimilate ourselves and the more that we go into these forms of different kinds of people, this is what I think causes the 9 to be unique, because as you'll see by how the pentagram structures, the 9 is on the top. And the 9, from what I read from another source, is the 9 is basically a contemplation of all these other personalities. Because we assimilate so much and we don't really get a sense of really self-identity, we often get a mix of these different self-identities, these different kinds of ways of thinking. Like we may think, we may have our own idealism, like a 1. We may be helpers, like number 2. We could be also achievers, like 3s. And we have all of these things contemplated in our head, but they're not really shared openly because, again, it's a mix of all these things because we don't really know who we are, because oftentimes we go along with what everybody else thinks or what everyone else does because we're afraid of, again, this separation, of this loss, of this feeling of not being loved or accepted. So yeah, that's basically all the personalities in a nutshell. Any questions, comments, concerns, be more than happy to answer them. I know this video went on a little bit long, but I felt like I needed to explain myself and I needed to explain all these personalities, and I thought that they were really interesting. If you're into things like psychology, this is definitely a useful tool, I think, for learning about the different kinds of people, learning about how people function, and then maybe you can realize, maybe you can realize a little bit more how people think. I think if we learned about all these different personalities, and if we started to learn how different people think, then we can kind of learn a little bit more about ourselves in the process and learn how we go about our lives, and maybe what we should change of ourselves. Not necessarily change, but what we should maybe open up to, or what we should maybe learn. Those kinds of things. So I think this is really all I can say. Any comments, questions, concerns, be more than happy to answer them. I'll make sure to give you guys links below that'll take you to the official website and any other websites that could offer maybe quizzes or things like that. And I'll give you a link to the book that is on Amazon, and you can actually look at the book a little bit. I'm not sure if you can look at all of the pages just from the Amazon one, but when I remember researching a little bit beforehand, it let me go through most of the pages. But again, if you have any questions, comments, concerns, more than happy to answer them. But I think that's really all I can say, and I don't have to work tomorrow. I'm so happy. Yay! So yeah, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Bye-bye. And I want to know what your personality is. If you feel like you know who you are, I would be more than happy to hear it. Be awesome. Be awesome to know who you are. Told you who I am. Now it's time to hear who you guys are. But anyway, that's just a side note. But this is the end of the video. And again, any comments, questions, concerns, feel free to ask. And until next time.